Robotics and AI. Nathan's here. Bakur is here. Filip is here. All right, I'm going to stay on stage with you guys for now, just to make sure you finish on time. So why don't we start out here by just maybe introducing yourselves and telling the audience a little bit about who you are and how you come to this space.
Okay, I'll go first. Nathan Dorn. I'm a serial entrepreneur for ag and Agtech and food companies. Worked at PepsiCo. Grew up on a family farm in Nebraska, and then thought that so highly of it, I joined the Navy, became a nuclear mechanic on submarines. Then eventually out of Detroit, worked on automation with the industrial firm. Eventually PepsiCo, Gallo Wines, then a company that farms for Driscoll's, building internal things. In the last couple years, I've been on my own working as a ag technologist and consultant to bring data science to enable better use of the robotic trends coming.
Filip, Reese. I'm a product manager with Blue River Technology. We're based in Sunnyvale. We're a precision agricultural technology startup that was acquired by John Deere in 2017. So we're focused on making agriculture more environmentally sustainable and more economically sustainable for farmers by applying robotics and artificial intelligence. So the main product that I work on is called See and Spray, and essentially we use computer vision and machine learning to differentiate between crops and weeds in cotton, soybean, and corn fields, and only apply herbicide directly on the weeds where it's needed instead of broadcast applying herbicide across the entire field.
My name is Bakur Kvezereli. I'm co-founder and CEO of the Ztractor, autonomous electric tractor company. We are building actual tractors for farmers of 3 different sizes, the 24 horsepower, 45 and 125. The 25 horsepower tractors will be available for farmers from next spring. We are Palo Alto based company. As a positioning on the market, we are integrators of off-the-shelf technologies on hardware side, owning software for better performance in farming environment, then like deploying some AI on self-driving, but also like thinking about how to collect data while operating in the farms.
Okay, so many questions. I'm going to start with you, Filip. You know, Blue River was one of the first companies in our local network here. You're a real local success story. And I remember when you started off with those machines that would just trim lettuce, and then you went on to machines that would use, I guess, machine learning and some optics to actually zap weeds. I met a farmer in Texas, and Nathan was with me at the time, who told us that Blue River cut his bill for pesticides by 95%. So that's pretty significant. What is Blue River doing now that you've been acquired by John Deere?
Yeah, definitely. I probably have to be careful here to give away, not give away too much information around John Deere's business strategy, but essentially the Deere acquisition has really enabled us to scale up and work to bring a commercially successful product to market even faster to a wider audience. So, when you were out in Texas, I actually spent a lot of time on that same farm. That individual is a fellow named Clint. He works for the Smiths. They're like a 10,000 acre cotton farm outside of Lubbock, Texas. So great people, super nice. And yeah, we spent a lot of time out there the last couple of years testing prototype equipment. So cotton is a massive market for farmers in the U.S., but on an acreage basis, it's still only about 1/10 the size of the soybean and the corn market. So if you think about Deere's business, those commodity farmers are really John Deere's bread and butter. So from a mission and strategy perspective, Blue River is still focused on delivering that same technology and allowing customers to reap that value. But we're not just focused on cotton now. That was really our test bed. We're really trying to bring a solution that works for all of the major row crops in the United States and then eventually beyond.
Great. Bakur, Ztractor, you said something really interesting there about data. We oftentimes do whole panels on data. So is that a valuable product of your company or byproduct or commodity, or is that something that people are really taking seriously?
Some of our investors are investing only in data companies, and they invested in us, and that's one of the kind of check marks that we proved that we are collecting valuable data. I believe that on-the-go data collection in a farm, that's the cheapest and most useful data you can collect in a farm, because the old approach with static weather stations is not going away. It has its value and its space on the market, but data became so much more complex. And somebody mentioned today that with less land, less water, less chemicals, we need to produce more food. And there is no magic. There is only one thing, probably three things, I think, which will be like helping or supporting this change are automation, and that also like covers the processing the data and improving the knowledge around the data in a farm, which data sets are useful, how we can use the machine learning, AI on these data sets. Then and the computer vision is a big part of that, because it's a whole new domain of understanding the plant health through the computer vision, which was not, which is around probably decade or less, and the knowledge and the critical, the data sets are big now, and it's enough to analyze that. And second is indoor farming. We had this panel, and third, probably alternative protein sources, right? There is no other, I don't know, it's, I think all experts, and we agree on that are the solutions which we see. There are solutions today we can envision for next or 2050's goal to feed the planet. Yeah, I think data for any tractor company will be a big business, especially if you find the ways to collect it like the way it was not done before, right? New ways of collecting data. I'm also trying to be like, to control my message while like having some secret parts of that, which how we do this. But it's clear that there are many technologies which can help in this field today.
Okay, now be prepared to be amazed, because I'm going to ask Nathan a question here. Nathan, you got some background in strawberries and other berries. Tell me about automation, robots, and AI as it applies to that industry, because this is truly amazing what's going on in the technology world.
Yeah, so I got to be fortunate to be a part of the early stages of that. When I started working for the company I worked with, they posed the big question, what are we going to do in 10 years? And that was almost 10 years ago today, somewhere in there. And it was, we have 50,000 acres and employ 75,000 people to harvest strawberries to send out to the community. I didn't realize it at the time. That's more people than there are in the wine grape industry doing the millions of acres of wine grapes. That's more people than are required to milk all the cows in the United States right now. There are, just this one task has this huge manual labor component. And this luxury good, this box of strawberries, is moving on and moving fast. So we put out a challenge kind of thing to find any way possible to improve that. And we stuck, the data side of this was, we went out and did a bunch of time studies. Literally tons of interns walking around the country with stopwatches and cameras, watching people do things. And we invented a number of machines to help things out, but we found out real quick we couldn't do it all ourselves. So we recruited a company out of Spain called Agribot to come, and they thought they could robotically pick. It's been almost 6 years since we incubated them internally, and they're still not over that finish line to commercially picking. But the cool thing about that was, in our industry, setting that challenge and setting that bar, saying, we know we're going to have a problem, going and announcing it to the world, quantifying it, saying, we think this is a $75, $100 million a year business to us as a business. They were that brought other people in. And we found tons of companies. Now there's over 11 worldwide robotic strawberry projects that are working against those challenges, and we're just a little piece of it, and we haven't scratched the surface yet of how much labor we could or will displace, if ever. So, and in my time, in those 10 years I worked on that project, the average age of the field worker increased by 1 year each year. So now they're 10 years older. We didn't add a single person to the roles during those years. So the problem is growing. The quantity, the value of it, it's like ag labor laws are changing faster than the weather outside. And the consumer side, if people like good food and inexpensive prices, that drills us to produce more faster. And in that industry, I was excited because labor represented 70% of the cost of goods. So 70%. And in row crops, where the great robotics and automation come next, I mean, robotics won't be used to displace labor in row crops. It'll be to be more precise and accurate. Labor is about 4% of my family's farm back in Nebraska. So the cost of goods, it's almost trivial. So there's a whole bunch to happen, and it's an exciting space. You look at all of California's crops, labor-centric. It's 40 to 75% across the board. That's going to be a need. And then precision is going to be an equal value someday down the road.
Yeah, I mean, just because of the labor shortage, it sounds like a really good place for growth. And all of your companies, that's what you do. You address that problem, right? If it weren't for labor shortage, there'd still be a need for sustainability. But that certainly is driving a lot of what you're doing, I would expect. So we have a room full of investors here. What would you tell them about investing in robotics and AI? Is it too crowded? Is it too early? Is it just right? What's your Goldilocks view of this?
I think it's just right. And what I see, and I'm looking to this industry for a long time now, I was previously investing in food robotics. And I think, and it's not only my opinion, I think every expert in this area agrees on this point, that we underestimate the labor problem in agriculture and food industry. It's much bigger. We don't know exactly how big it is, but what we know by statistical numbers, and it's not only California. We like to say that, oh, such a big problem in California. No, it's a problem for worldwide, everywhere. In developing countries, it's even bigger problem because they move from farm workers move to the coffee shop and working in the much better environment, right, than in the field, and it's probably even higher pay, right? And I believe that the number which is given by the World Economic Forum, I believe, is 35% less labor is available today in the farms than 10 years ago. And if this number is, worldwide, like 35% is a significant number. Even if it's like, maybe there is some fluctuation there, it's a huge number, right? So, and if it will continue.
Can I interrupt you? What are we doing with all those, are there displaced farm workers who now have to be retrained, or are they just out of the market?
So I think the two major trends, probably. One, they need less labor for some of the different reasons, maybe different crop, maybe different type of seeds, which require less of some agri-techniques operations in a farm. But mostly it's a pay and the work conditions, right? Some cases it's factory to farm, in some cases it's farm to moving to an urban environment. In some, this trend is still ongoing, right? And where it will bring us for farmer, not to the better position, right? This is not a problem of the big economies, right? It's a problem for every type of economy, including small developing countries are struggling to get farm labor.
Yeah, and especially here in California. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. I think to your point, it's not just labor availability, but also labor quality. So as agriculture is shifted to operation of large, complex machinery, and more data, more institutional knowledge is used to make decisions on the farm. A individual farmer who's been running their operation, they can't ride in the cab in every single machine, and so it's not good enough to, pick up a minimum wage worker off the street. They need a skilled operator who can actually manage their equipment effectively. So the opportunities are not just in taking a driver out of the cab, but actually in making it possible for the farmer to operate all of his machinery or her machinery at peak quality for as long as possible. So I think that is one of the biggest opportunities. And to your original question around is this the right time for investment in this space? I would definitely agree with you, and I don't think it's just a macroeconomic factor that's driving that, but from what I'm seeing, both here in the Valley, working with my CVML engineers and researchers on solving these problems, as well as the time that I get to spend in places like Texas and Iowa talking to farmers, the technology is really coming to a point where if applied to specific problems that actually provide real value, customers are ready and willing to adopt and try these technologies. And so it's really just a matter of finding the companies that really found the crossover between those two areas and are really focusing on a real problem that can generate value. I think some investors and some companies have probably been burned in the last 5 to 10 years chasing after solutions where essentially their entire goal was to provide more data. Farmers are already drowning in data, but what they're really looking for is insights to make better decisions. So look for opportunities where companies are equipping existing machinery that's already doing a job in the field. That's a little plug for you guys to collect valuable data that can actually be used to make decisions. Don't ask customers to do another job because there's costs associated with that, there's complexity associated with that, and if the results don't show up either in their top line revenue or by cutting costs, then they're going to be quite unwilling to adopt that solution.
Nathan, I'm going to give you the last word on this in the last 2 minutes we got.
Well, I do believe that it was probably about 10 years ago was the start of the right time. So it's definitely the right time. And we currently see already not even as much farmers investing in technology because their challenge is their focus spreading out. But I see retailers going to farmers and saying, I will buy more of your product if you can do this. Meaning, can you go out and reduce my carbon footprint in 5 years? Can you go out and ensure the supply of my strawberry field or wine grape or table grape or almonds over the next 5 years? Because I see my customer base growing. I see my mega trend is that if you don't do something, the price of my almonds is going to go up and I'm not going to be able to supply my growing market the same way. So I've seen Costco come out and invest in ag tech companies that affect the supply of the farmers or the supply to them from the farmers that grow for them. And it's happening all over the place. So, and the other part about investing is I think it's part of a self-fulfilling prophecy. I work with a lot of farmers whose sole criteria is the technology funded well enough to make it through the nuances of the challenge of working with me, the farmer. So is it funded well enough that I can get them over the hump of working with me and we can all be successful?
Okay, thank you very much, panel on robotics and AI.
Thank you.
Thanks, Roger.